Rated RP.
Hello, my name is Martin Wallfish and I'm the founder and president of Massive Entertainment. I'm here today to talk to you about World in Conflict, the upcoming franchise from Sierra and Massive Entertainment. The setting for the game is the late 80s and early 90s. Remember the Cold War? Imagine the two superpowers of the time, USA and USSR, and now imagine that the Cold War went really hot. The peace talks fail and a devastating war between the two mighty armies breaks out. In World in Conflict we get to see what that war would have been like. The units and weapons are historically accurate, and so is their function on the battlefield. This means that everybody understands the units and how to use them. T-72s, M1A1 Abrams, Apache helicopters, anti-air guns, snipers, and everything that was available in that era. Now, before I tell you about the single player and the unique multiplayer features, let's take a quick look at how the game works. So the gameplay is tremendously easy. We focus on what people love the most about RTS games, the combat. At the beginning of each map, the player chooses one of four roles: air, armor, support or infantry. So tanks and jeeps for armor, choppers for air role and so on. The roles are balanced so that every weapon has a counter weapon, for each hero and nemesis. The player has a fixed amount of credits when the game starts. He can use the credits to buy units right away, and within seconds the units are deployed at the drop zone and ready to engage the enemy. You're on the offensive right away, making choices, getting into the battle within the first 60 seconds. Okay, let's talk a little about the camera. As you can see in these in-game shots, the camera allows a free, fully rotational 360-degree view of the battlefield. You can zoom in on individual units at any time, or you can back out and have the full general's perspective of the battlefield. It takes less than 3 minutes to learn and to master a camera, and in fact, once players have experienced this, they find it hard to go back to their traditional fixed RTS camera. So when fighting against the enemy, the player may of course need some extra support. So we have designed something we call tactical aids, powerful support weapons which allow for dramatic turnarounds in the game. The player can call in tactical aids at any time, and with the right timing and skillful deployment, they can have a tremendous impact on the outcome of the game. There's the artillery barrage, the airstrikes, napalm showers, tank busters, air-to-air attacks, paratroopers, and of course the awesome tactical nuke, the most powerful nuke seen in any game to date. As the blast wave from the nuke hits the airfield, as you can see, everything in its way is destroyed. On each map you can destroy everything you see. Houses can be blown away, you can crush cars in the streets, forests will burn down, bridges can be blown apart, and so on. The pathfinding is updated accordingly, as you see here, where the tanks are using a shortcut that has opened up thanks to an earlier napalm strike in the forest. And if the bridges have been blown away, you can always order down a bridge layer unit and reappear on the battlefield faster than an enemy expects. Okay, now let's take a look at the single-player campaign in World in Conflict. It's 1989 and history takes a bad turn. The Berlin Wall doesn't fall down and the Cold War doesn't end. It's written by Larry Bond, the co-author of Red Storm Rising and an expert of the era. As the game starts, peace talks fail and suddenly we find the Russians marching into Europe. So we bring the player to the American West Coast in Seattle, where the Russians launch an attack into mainland US. We then continue across America, then go to occupied Europe, into Russia, and finally back to the US for the grand finale. It's also very important to mention that the story is not one-sided. It's not a story about good versus evil, but a story about superpower versus superpower. Both sides are well organized, have very powerful weapons, and have a clear rationale for why they are doing what they're doing. The single-player campaign plays out in many familiar settings, and the maps are incredibly detailed. The rural towns and suburbs of the United States, the countryside of southern France, the frozen tundra of Russia, Seattle, etc. Also very important to mention is that we will have over 10 minutes of cinematics, created by our in-house cinematics team, and as you can see, they're just fantastic in what they're doing. So let's talk a little about multiplayer in World in Conflict. You can play up to 8v8 games, which is twice as many as the current RTS standard. Imagine hundreds of units on the battlefield, on a wild fight for domination. If this is too daunting, you can also play smaller games, 1v1, 2v2, 4v4, etc. So the system of balanced credits allows a player to join at any time without being at disadvantage, which is also a much needed new feature in this genre. Now for something that really makes World in Conflict multiplayer shine. Team play is a big trend in online gaming, and World in Conflict is the first strategy game to fully embrace this. A team with the right mix of roles will be able to achieve miracles even against a numerically stronger opponent. Imagine one player controlling tanks, rolling up a hill, having scout choppers and attack helicopters above him, having infantry and APCs behind him, and then having artillery units further back. That force, that fighting force, is something that no enemy will stand a chance to defend itself against without heavy losses. So it's all about combining your units, combining your teamwork, and giving that enemy what they deserve. The intensity and adrenaline of World in Conflict means that the game is designed heavily with clans, cyber sports, and the Counter-Strike and Battlefield audience in mind. To further support player interaction, we have added voice over IP, a shared mega map, chat, team requests, unit sharing, and much more. It's all about giving the teams the communication tools they need to talk to each other, show their intentions, and request help from each other.
Ghost Rider, I see range low. Dropping napalm.
The matches are normally set to a 20-minute limit, but the time limit can be set to any preference. All in all, the multiplayer experience is fast, intense, and extremely accessible. Alright, so there you have it. World in Conflict, the most intense strategy game ever created.